I know Ronnie since I'm 16 years old when I started working for my father, in East New York. I met Ronnie. We were teenagers. I was with him every day for years, day and night. We hung out. We drank together. We committed crimes together. We played, Ronnie had one arm. It never stopped him from doing anything. We played basketball. He was a pretty good basketball player for a guy with one arm because he was tall. He hit like a mule with that one arm. If he punched you in the face with that one hand, you were gone. You would get knocked out. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reformed Gangsters. I'm Anthony Ruggiano Jr. And if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Also, don't forget about my Patreon. I got a lot of new content on there, a lot of content coming up. So check it out. Membership start at $1. And also in my store, I got a lot of new merch. Check it out. Christmas is coming. So as everybody out there knows that's in the mob, that watches all these mob podcasts and, that's interested in mob stories and history and who's who and what's what. I'm sure everybody knows by now that Ronnie, one-arm Trucchio, just got granted a compassionate release out of Tampa, Florida. He's been incarcerated for the past 21 years. A lot of shows on YouTube that are, all these mob channels are doing shows on him, and all jumped on the bandwagon after Jerry Capisi broke the news in Gangland on Thursday. That's how I found out. I went on Gangland and I saw it. I saw Ronnie's picture, and that's how I got my information. And then, of course, I made calls in the neighborhood, and everybody's talking about it. But all these YouTube channels that are doing these specials on Ronnie One Arm, all they're doing is regurgitating what's written, what they talked about people about. They don't have no firsthand knowledge of Ronnie. They don't know Ronnie personally. And that's the difference between me and a lot of these YouTube channels. Not everybody. A lot of guys are hands-on. Joey Molina, who, I don't get along with, he's hands-on. Sammy's hands-on. Michael Francis is hands-on. We were in it. We knew these people. We dealt with people. But all these other guys, these guys on the fringes, I don't want to mention no names. They don't know nobody. They weren't mobbed up. They don't know anybody. But they're all jumping on Ronnie One Arm's bandwagon, to get views, which is fine. But me, the difference between me is I have personal relationships with these people, with a lot of these people. I did business with them. I grew up with them. And Ronnie One Arm happens to be one of those people. And before I even get started, I don't know if Ronnie's ever going to hear this video or see this video. From what I understand, he's very ill. That's why they're letting him out. Compassionate release. I heard he's very, very ill with his eyesight. He's in a wheelchair. He can't walk. He's been in a prison hospital for, I think, about a year now. So my heart goes out to him. I love the guy. He was one of my best, dearest friends. And I'm so happy that he's not going to die in jail, that he's going to get an opportunity to die like a human being at home with his family. So, my heart goes out to him. If he ever hears this, I'm glad that, he got this granted to him and his family. But I have a lot of Ronnie One Arm stories. I know Ronnie since I'm 16 years old when I started working for my father, in East New York. I met Ronnie. We were teenagers. I was with him every day for years, day and night. We hung out. We drank together. We committed crimes together. We played, Ronnie had one arm. It never stopped him from doing anything. We played basketball. He was a pretty good basketball player for a guy with one arm because he was tall. He hit like a mule with that one arm. If he punched you in the face with that one hand, you were gone. You would get knocked out. He was a ladies' man. He was a sharp dresser. He always went out with beautiful women. We spent many, 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 many days together and nights together, going out to clubs in the 70s, discos, fighting with people and going on sit-downs and partying. And, we just were very, very close. We had our little crew, our little clique, me, Ronnie One Arm, Robert, Little Joe, Sal, Johnny Bino, and we were in clubs every night. He was a partier. He was a party animal, a gambler. We got along really great. Even when I was in prison, he was one of the few guys that looked out for my family, that took care of my son, took care of my wife Alice, looked out for my mother. Loved my own man, loved Fat Andy and Tony Lee. You know what I mean? Loved them. He was with them for many, many years until, Nicky Carrazza and Jojo Carrazza became made members. Then the crew split up and he went with Jojo. But he always still came around by us, always came to the Polish National Hall, and I got some personal stories. I got a lot of stories about Ronnie one. I'm just going to tell two today. But if anybody else is interested in them, let us know. So the first one is, Ronnie always had a gun on him. Ronnie always had a gun on him, or in his car. There was always when Ronnie one arm was around, there was always a gun around. Whether it was on him or in his car, it was always nearby. Maybe because he had one arm, he was a little insecure. I don't know, but he always had a gun on him. It goes without saying. Ronnie one arm always had a pistol nearby. So we used to hang out. We were kids in our early 20s. This was in the 70s, in the early 70s. We used to hang out in this bar on Woodhaven and Atlantic. Back then it was called the 94 Club or the 93 Club. I don't even remember. Now it's, then it became a strip joint. It's still there. It's still there. But we used to hang out in there every day. That's where we started. We would start our day out in there, and then from there we would go to Manhattan or go wherever we went. Ronnie always was in the Ravenite when we also were Buddy, Neil's son. We were always in the Ravenite together back in the day when our Neil was alive. Not so much when John became the boss, but when Neil was alive, we were always in the Ravenite together, Ronnie and I. So anyway, I'm in this bar on Woodhaven and Atlantic, and Dominic Cataldo, who was a made member of the Colombo family's brother, was in there. And we were at the bar drinking, and his brother was at the end of the bar. And Ronnie One Arm walked in to meet us, right? And he walked in, and he's a flashy kid, Ronnie. And he walks in, and he throws $100 bill on the bar to buy everybody around the drinks. This Momo, Dominic Cataldo's brother, tells the bartender, hey, you better check that $100 bill out. And Ronnie One Arm hears it. That, he wanted that maybe Ronnie threw a counterfeit bill on the bar. So Ronnie looks at him, and Ronnie walked over to him and takes the gun out and stuck it in his head and go, is this fucking counterfeit too, motherfucker? And he put the gun in the guy. Now, we knew it was Dominic's brother, right? And he dove on the floor, Dominic's brother. I forgot his name. Anyway, he dove on the floor, right? And Ronnie put the gun in his ear, and now the guy's on the floor. Ronnie had the gun against his head going, is this fake? And Ronnie's abusing him, right? So then, I just, he deserved it as far as I was concerned for saying that, because he knew who I was. Dominic's brother knew who I was. Now, he saw Ronnie come in to meet me. He knew who Ronnie was. He was just being a smartass because, we were a lot younger than him. So anyway, to make a long story short, of course, he tells his brother what happened, and we have to go on a sit down with. Now, Ronnie One Arm at the time was with Fat Andy and Tony Lee. This is before Nicky Carrazza and Jojo got straightened out. The books weren't even open yet. This is in the early 70s. So my father and Tony Lee had to sit down with Dominic Cataldo, and the guy that owned the bar was with Dominic. The owner of the bar at the time was with Dominic. So Dominic at the sit down tells my old man and Tony that he wanted Ronnie One Arm barred out of the bar, not being allowed back in the bar anymore. And my old man looked at him and told him, you're not barring nobody out of this bar. Only dogs get barred out of places. And needless to say, none of us got barred out of the bar. We actually took over the bar. It became our bar. Dominic's brother stopped coming there. I mean, it actually really, we after that sit down, we pretty much took over that bar. That's one little Ronnie One Arm story. I might tell 3 Ronnie One Arm stories. He was a tough bastard, Ronnie. I mean, like I said, he always had a gun on him. He was a lot of fun to be around. I mean, I loved him. When I was in jail, when I was in jail in the 90s, and even when I went to jail, my cousin Gene always talks about this. My cousin Gene, when he was a kid, him and my son were always together. And when I was in jail, they would go to they would be passing by Aldo's Pizzeria, and they would see Ronnie in there, and they would tell my son, "Come on, let's go in there. He'll buy us free pizza because of me." And my son would go in there with all his friends, and Ronnie would buy them free pizza, and he'd give my son like $50 or $100. He'd stick in my son's pocket because that's the kind of guy he was. And he knew I was in jail, and he looked out for my son. You know, one of the few guys that did that. Another story was where Ronnie almost lost his life was there was a bar right off Atlantic Avenue down like by Sheridan Street where it's gone now. He used to hang out in with this guy, Frankie Geesh. And he was in there one night, and this is what kind of guy he was, what kind of stand-up tough guy he was. And he had an argument there with a guy, and he smacked, from what I understand, he smacked the guy. About a week later, the guy came back to the bar with another guy and walked in, and Ronnie was in there by himself. And he told Ronnie, you know, we didn't know who you were. I came to apologize. I don't want no trouble. Bah, 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 bah. And Ronnie, they started drinking together. When they left, as they were walking out the door, when they got outside, right outside the bar, the two guys started stabbing Ronnie. They set him up. It was like a yoki doke. They set him up. They started stabbing him. He fell down on the floor, and they were stabbing him. And like I said, he always had a gun on him. He's got his gun out, and he shot one of them in the face. And he killed that guy. And the other guy ran away, got in his car, and got into a car accident on Atlantic Avenue and crashed, and they arrested the guy. The ironic part, now Ronnie he actually got his last rites in Jamaica Hospital. We all thought he was going to die. Now we all find out what happened. You know, we're all worried about him. He's in the hospital. They're giving him his last rites. Word comes out that he's going to die. And needless to say, he doesn't die. He pulls out of it by a miracle. He lives after getting his last rites and everything. I mean, he got stabbed numerous times. And if he didn't have a gun on him, he would have been dead. They would have kept on stabbing him. That's the only thing that saved him was the gun. But the ironic part of the whole thing is this is the ironic part. Now, the guy gets arrested on Atlantic Avenue. They want Ronnie's in the hospital, just comes off death's door. They want Ronnie to identify the guy. He ain't identifying nobody. So what did they do? They got so mad, they charged Ronnie with possession of an illegal firearm, and he went to jail for that. He went to jail for the gun, and then they got it reversed. He was in Greenhaven, I think, when they got it reversed, and he got out of jail. He went to jail for the gun that saved his life because it was an illegal firearm, and he went to jail. That's the ironic part of it. The last story I'm going to tell about him right now is, and this is why what separates me from all these other guys' podcasts is that giving you secondhand information. I'm giving you firsthand, hands-on information. You know, the guy was my friend. He was with me. You know, every day, you know, we spent time together. We were like brothers. So now I'm in jail in 91. And when I'm in jail, Ronnie gets made. Ronnie becomes a main member of the Gambino family. Ronnie gets straightened out. I'm so happy that he's straightened out because I always love to see friends of mine become made members. It was good for them, and it was good for me because they were my friends. I'd rather see my friends get straightened out than my enemies, right? Or people I don't know. Doesn't do me any good. So Ronnie gets made. I get out of jail in 92, and I go see him right away to congratulate him. I go see him at home maybe a day or two. I go to the 77th Street where his club was on 101st Avenue. He comes outside, we hug and kiss, and we go for a little walk, him and I, you know. And I tell him, and I'm teasing him, I go, now that you're a made guy, do I have to come here with, you know, do I have to come here with representation? You know, now, you know, because I was only proposed. He was already made. You know, I was waiting to get straightened out. And he laughed. He goes, of course not. What are you kidding me? Stop this shit. You know, and I said, all right. So now moving forward, now Ronnie's made. He's not a captain yet. He's a soldier. And I have a beef with the West Side, with the Genovese family. I'm over a vending company that they try to, a vending company I was looking to extort. They put a claim in on it, and we had to have a sit down. And my father, of course, was in prison, and Tony Lee was dead. Now, this was in 93, right after my daughter was born. This was about a year after Ronnie got straightened out. And so Mikey Gal, Tony's brother, was a balloon head. He was a fucking idiot. I didn't want to go. I knew I had to go on to sit down with him, but I wanted Ronnie with me because I knew Ronnie would fight. Ronnie would, wouldn't back down. He was like my own man. He learned from Fat Andy and Tony Lee how to conduct himself on sit downs. Like Fat Andy was his idol. You know what I mean? So I go to Pete Gotti and I tell Pete Gotti, listen, you got to do me a favor and you got to give, because Pete Gotti was the captain at the time on the panel with Nicky. He was on the panel of the Gambino family with Nicky Carrazza and Junior and him. So I go to Pete and I tell him, listen, you got to do me a favor. Ronnie knows these guys from the West Side, these wise guys from the West Side that I have to sit down with Mikey. I want you to give us permission to take Ronnie with me. And he did. And Ronnie came on to sit down with us, and we sat down, and I won the decision. Well, the decision was made that I had to go partners with the West Side, but I ran the company. And it was only because Ronnie was there. If Ronnie wasn't there, I probably would have just got wouldn't have turned out as good as it did for me. I would have got a piece of it, but I wouldn't have got control of the company. They had no say. I just had to send them their end. Like it was my company, but they were my silent partner. And, and only because Ronnie was there, to make the introductions and do the talking. So, so Ronnie, was definitely a gangster. He was a dangerous, violent criminal like all of us, but he had a good heart. He looked out for his friends. He was a stand-up guy, and I'm glad he's gone home. I'm glad he got out. I'm glad he's gonna, unfortunately I know he's very ill. I don't think they would have let him out if he wasn't really on death's door, because of what kind of criminal he was. And, I don't think they would let him out. So I'm just happy for him and his family that he's going to get to spend some time home.
What kind of crimes was he known for?
Oh my God, he was extortion, bookmaking, shylocking, drugs. He was actually partners with Johnny A-Light and John Jr. in the drug business. I mean, Johnny A-Light and him at the end didn't get along. Because when Ronnie went to trial, he did stuff he shouldn't have done. And, and John A-Light took offense to it, which even though I love Ronnie, I agree with John A-Light. Ronnie shouldn't have done that. He defended himself because the lawyer got tied up in Brooklyn, and he, it was just something he shouldn't have done, Ronnie. And A-Light took offense to it, which I think A-Light happens to be right in that scenario. But any kind of crime, drugs, anything, whatever. Ronnie would do anything to make money, shake people down,
He defended himself and shot that one guy. Did he kill anyone else?
Well, he's allegedly one of the shooters of the Uvers, the Bonnie and Clyde couple that were robbing the social clubs. He allegedly was supposed to be one of the shooters on that. How I first met him was so when I first started coming around to East New York, my father and Tony Lee had a social club. This is before they moved their operations into Ozone Park. They were still headquartered in East New York. So they had on Eastern Parkway in Atlantic Avenue, they had a bar on one side of the street called the Back Page, and they had a luncheonette on the other side of the street. And then on the other side of Atlantic Avenue, there was a beer distributor. And on top of the beer distributor, they had a social club. And there was a poker game in there that I ran with Anthony Carrazza, Nicky Carrazza's kid brother, and Ronnie would come up there. And that's how I met Ronnie and Robert Angle and Piccolo and all them kids from Joey Torino. Those were all these kids that were in East New York. And that's when I met all the younger kids that were around my old man and Tony Lee. He never lost his arm. He's got an arm. He got hit, when he was a kid, he got hit by a car. And it damaged his arm, and he never went for therapy, and his arm died. He has a dead arm. It's not. He has like a little arm. It's like a kid's arm. It's just like a little undeveloped arm he's got.
And so he grew up in the neighborhood?
He grew up in East New York. He lived on Eastern Parkway on top of the. His father had a grocery store or a butcher shop. I don't remember, His father had a store on Easter Parkway between Pacific Street and Atlantic Avenue. His father had a grocery store. Right. His father, Al, was a good guy. His father, Al, was a really nice guy. His father, Al, loved me. And he lived in the building there on Easter Parkway.
I think we're wrapped up. That was good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, gotta take it out.
See, that's the difference between us and them. They can't tell stories like that. They're all getting on the Ronnie One on bandwagon. All over the internet this morning. This picture and more to come. A video out. They're advertising a new video out this afternoon about Ronnie One on here. What are they going to talk about? They're going to regurgitate the stories I just told you and make out it's dead. So they're going to say, "Oh yeah, he did this, he did that." Meanwhile, they heard it from me.
Yeah. Close it up.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Reform Gangsters. Don't forget, if you like the content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Also, check out my Patreon, a lot of new content, and also my store, my merch, hats, shirts, mugs. Christmas is coming. Get your Fanny Andy t-shirts, and have a good day.